Okay, the first item on our agenda is an accent on achievement.
Good evening. Tonight we have two accents on achievement. Our first one is recognizing Grant Weatherton, who received a perfect score on the ACT. Unfortunately, Grant could not be with us tonight, so Bartlett Principal Dr. Richard LeBlanc is here to accept it on his behalf. Our second award tonight is recognizing two of our individuals that were recently received recognition from the Transportation Security Administration. So first up, we have Andy Martin.
Andy, we have two certificates for you, a plaque and a certificate. The Board of Education School District U-46 hereby recognizes Andy Martin, U-46 Director of Transportation, for being honored by the Transportation Security Administration for the Department's Safety, Security, and Emergency Procedures. Presented this 13th day of January 2014, signed by me, Donna Smith, Board President, and Dr. Jose Torres, Superintendent of Schools. And I believe this, and this is from the Transportation Security Administration itself, Certificate of Appreciation, presented to Andy J. Martin, School District U-46, in recognition of your outstanding partnership and professionalism in advancing the TSA's mission to protect the nation's transportation systems while significantly enhancing TSA's ability to achieve its strategic goals at Chicago Midway International Airport. Your commitment to our collective organizational success is greatly valued and appreciated. And this is signed by Kevin G. McCarthy, Federal Security Director, Transportation Security Administration. Thank you very much, Andy. As always, your job every day, the transportation's jobs every day. Very important, very big part of our security and running the district. Thank you so much.
Our next employee that was recognized by TSA is John Heiderscheid.
John, we have a certificate here for you, Certificate of Achievement. The Board of Education of School District U-46 hereby recognizes John Heiderscheid, U-46 Safety and Security Coordinator, for being honored by the Transportation Security Administration for the district's emergency response plans. Presented this 13th day of January 2014, signed by Donna Smith, Board President, and Dr. Jose Torres, Superintendent of Schools. And also we have a plaque, the same plaque from the Transportation Security Administration for John Heiderscheid. Again, I was here before we had a safety coordinator, and we have come so far as a district, and as far as safety and security with you on board. Thank you so much. Next item on our agenda is the district improvement plan.
Well, before I introduce Mr. Sanders and Mr. Maggi, we also had a second student who had a perfect ACT score, but she didn't want to be recognized publicly. So I have a certificate, and I'm going to pull her out and take her to a corner of the school and recognize her in private. Yes, the student is from Elgin High School.
Yes.
From Bartlett and from Elgin.
I would like to tutor my junior.
I will ask her if she wants a job.
That would be great.
Our next item is a district improvement plan, the district improvement plan report, and we have an opportunity for Tony Sanders, Chief of Staff, and Pat Maggi, Director of School Community Relations, to present the 2013 annual report. the board may or may not want to try to pull it down on your site because it's a pretty large document. So, with that, Tony?
Dr. Torres, thank you, members of the Board of Education. First of all, I don't want you to think that this is the first time we've had an annual report. It's just the first time we've had one that looked this nice. In the past, we'd always would incorporate elements of an annual report in the budget book that the board would approve every year. This is one, I kind of feel like we should have done this in December because that was when they were doing all the countdowns of the top 100 songs of the year and all the other things, the top things of the year. That's kind of what this annual report does. It delineates a lot of our top accomplishments from 2013. You'll note the version that's on your screen is a little bit shrunk. So as we go through this, you'll see in addition to the table of contents, and Dr. Torres, he kind of looks a little bit squished, and so do you, but that's just the version that's coming up on the screens. I promise you, the real version doesn't make you look all scrunched, okay? So with that, we will, Pat and I will just quickly give you an overview of some of the contents of the top accomplishments from 2013.
So when taking a look at our early learners program with Give Me 5, they delivered 39 presentations at elementary school and also with their community partners. They held drop-in preschool at 10 sites, reaching 163 children in high-risk areas. As a district, we continue to align to the Common Core, and our dual language program continues to expand, serving 4,159 students in one-way dual language and 1,184 students in two-way dual language at 18 sites. This past year, we tested all third grade students, and each of our high schools received the Advanced Ed accreditation. With PBIS, Highland received exemplar status for the second year in a row, and 40 of our 53 schools are recognized at the various implementation statuses. With our homeless program and Project Access and all the work that Maggie Schroeder does, 364 students were served in 2007, and as you've seen, we've had a dramatic increase. 754 students were served last year. In terms of our college and workplace readiness and the National Career Readiness Certificate, 2,427 students earned certification last year, and 47 had platinum distinction at high school. And we had 262 Illinois State scholars in 2013.
So those are some of the highlights of the Education Excellence in Teaching and Learning portion of the annual report. Moving on is the next section entitled Above and Beyond. These are national and state awards that the district has either received or been recognized for. At the top of the page, you'll see a national model transformation at Taft Middle School. As the board is aware, for the second year, Taft Middle School has been recognized by the MetLife Foundation for their exceptional work in transforming that school. In the middle are Illinois Honor Roll schools. Those are schools that the State Board of Education recognizes annually. This year, in 2013, we had 5 schools recognized: Bartlett Elementary, Centennial, Prairie View, and Wayne. I'm sorry, that's 4. We'll make it 5 this year. The next page is our nationally recognized high schools. We mentioned tonight Bartlett and Elgin High School. As we've been trying to tell the whole world, Bartlett High School is recognized by Newsweek. Out of 25,000 high schools in the country, 2,000 schools are asked to participate as the best high schools, and Bartlett High School is right around 1,700 on that list. The same thing for Elgin High School, but a different publication. They received the U.S. News and World Report Silver Award. We also were one of the few districts across the country this year that actually was able to host Arnie Duncan, Secretary of Education. He came in, spent about a half a day in the district, visited Streamwood High School, participated in a roundtable discussion with some of our students, our board members, teachers, and union president. Finally, Golden Apple. We received several recognitions from the Golden Apple Foundation. David Hain, a teacher at Streamwood High School, was a finalist for the Golden Apple program, and Heather Johnson, a student at Elgin High School, was selected as a scholar. She's a future teacher who will be hopefully coming back and lending her expertise to U-46 after she gets to college.
In terms of our equity and excellence work, we received national recognition for our advanced placement performance by the Broad Foundation. Specifically, Hispanic students improved their passing rates quickly enough to gain on their white peers. Dr. Torres was the only superintendent in the nation to serve on the U.S. Department of Education's Equity and Excellence Commission, and they issued their final report for each and every child. Our out-of-school suspensions and dropouts continue to decrease. Dropout rates dipped to 2.1%, and out-of-school suspensions were down 27.5%. And we continue to try to lead by example. We provided diversity training to over 300 of our staff members and launched the Game Changer Mentor Program to pair adults with students to encourage them to stay in school and continue to pursue their goals.
Under operational excellence, that section, we're not unlike McDonald's in a lot of ways. You know how they always have the signs on the marquees that say millions and millions served? In U-46, just last year, we served 1.5 million breakfasts, 3.6 million lunches, and our buses traveled a total of 5 million miles. Other elements of our operational excellence, our successful launch of online registration for parents, which was very smooth thanks to the effort of Ricky Sparks and his staff, and also John Heiderscheid and his work. The Transportation Department was able to purchase 90 new school buses thanks to the board's authorization of that. That replaced school buses that were 14 years or older. Capital improvements are listed at the bottom. You'll note we did start reinvesting into our facilities, including an addition at Ontario-Ville Elementary School.
In terms of family and community engagement, our Parent Leadership Institutes continue to grow. We graduated another class this past year and recognized those individuals that were in our first year of the program. And our community partnerships continue to be strengthened. We highlighted in the report the summer reading program with all of our libraries, which actually, the program in partnership with Elgin Gail Baldwin Library helped us get recognition of as a Governor's Hometown Award recipient. So Elgin will be putting up those signs if they haven't already as you enter Elgin for the summer reading program. We work with our Chambers of Commerce and Education Summit that was hosted by the mayor of Elgin, where hundreds of people came together to talk about ways to support our public schools. And also United Way. Our employees are very generous. Hundreds of employees give their money, which then also goes to support several programs, specifically to support early childhood and reading initiatives within the district. Our U-46 Foundation is another program that continues to grow and supports several of our initiatives in the district. And our planetarium, which I believe is the only school district in Illinois and one of the few in the country, has served 19,000 students in 2013 and also has opened their doors for the community to hold specific planetarium shows. In fact, some are coming up this month.
In the area of employee engagement, tonight the board hopefully will be taking action on the final report of the Transformation Task Force. That's listed as one of our accomplishments for 2013. Our administrative intern program is a program that has been very successful in trying to get teachers who have an interest in becoming future leaders in the school district the opportunity to move into an administrative intern program and hopefully eventually become a principal or an administrator within the district. The number of national board certified teachers in 2013 increased to 78 in school district U-46. And then under exceptional support staff, Sue Fortner, who is the secretary of Elgin High School, was named one of the Educator of the Years for support staff at the Kane County Regional Office Awards Ceremony.
We also attempted to highlight some of the personal stories in the district with over 40,000 students. There's a lot of great stories out there, but limited space in this report. We specifically highlighted Eduardo Perez, who is a student that's received a full ride to Stanford, and also contributed greatly during his time in Elgin and was a student that spent all of his time in U-46 schools. The Superintendent Scholarship Program continues to recognize students that traditionally are their first in their family to go to college, and may have overcome several obstacles to get into school. Their stories are really compelling. And in our Student Spotlight section, you'll see that we highlighted different accomplishments of our students, including ProStart, the DECA Conference, and our Larkin Palms that believe we're state champions 2 years in a row.
Towards the end, we have a snapshot of Destination 2015, areas where we've either seen incremental growth, steady growth, and then areas where we've seen exponential growth, like first graders at reading level, AP exams, and family and community engagement. And finally, no annual report would be complete if we didn't give an overview of our finances. So this chart captures both on the revenue, where we get our money from, and the expenditures, where we spend the money that we receive by percentage. And throughout this report, you'll see that we did all these things, all this work occurred while still providing a balanced budget for the school district. And that concludes our formal presentation. Usually we would have a next step slide, but this is in a PowerPoint. So our next steps from this point, this was like our soft launch of the annual report. We are getting the pricing right now for printing and determining which groups we need to reach out to in a full communication plan, in addition to getting it translated into Spanish and assigned. But that does conclude our presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I was just going back through this quickly because I know we have a version of this. Do we have the context in here? You know, for example, that in 2008, our students in poverty were, I think, 43%, and now in 2013, we have over 60% of our district, almost 61% of our district is in poverty. Is that?
It's not in this yearly
No,
annual report.
I think it's really important for people to see the economic impact that the recession has had on the district and the impact that it's had on our students and our families. And that in the face of all of that adversity, you know, we have continued to make strides in a climate that has been incredibly difficult to operate in, both you know, from an operational standpoint, but also from an academic and emotional standpoint with our students. You know, that we are continuing to make progress under some incredibly difficult circumstances. And I don't know that if it's too late, but I do think that is really important context for people.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
You don't have a clue how much that's gonna cost to print yet?
We've not, well, we're gonna run numbers of this no matter what, but the determination of how many to run will really, you know, we've not made a determination of how many to run, so there's no specific number yet. We're gonna try to mail this out to all households. That's the number we'd like to know what the cost would be before we proceed.
I guess I would caution us to, we know what the attention span is like for, you know, reading a very lengthy document, and we also know, especially when that shows up in your mailbox and you take it as just another thing to go in the recycling bin. I'm wondering if there's a way for us to minimize our cost exposure on that, but also figure out a way to take the big picture, the most important pieces out of this that I think are most critical to our U-46 families who are parenting in this district about where we're at. And I'm wondering if that is a more condensed version. I guess what I always like to say is, what would we put on the billboard? You know, if people were driving into town, what would our billboard say? And I think there's some pieces that we can really highlight that we know are of particular meaning, and maybe that's a way to, you know, get the information out and figure out who the influencers are. You know, how do we want to build that team of cheerleaders and make sure that this full report gets into their hands with, you know, with hopefully a personal touch, that we might be willing to make presentations and things like that at community groups. I'm not sure that the cost of this whole report going to every single household is going to be consumed in the way that we would like it to be consumed.
Yeah, perhaps one option would be to send something out high level and direct them to the website, or a press release that the newspapers would run with high level overview points, and then it's either on or will be on our website for everybody to view, and we can direct them there via the newspapers and things like that.
I kinda like the brochure idea. I know that I have to read this stuff, but I know a lot of people are gonna look at it and go, yeah, okay, that's very nice. And it's gonna get recycled, I don't wanna kill any trees.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I just wanna continue to say that,
It's beautiful.
I'm really, really proud of the work that's being done in this district on behalf of, that this is a district that, is fiercely committed to making sure that all of our students from all walks of life, from all socioeconomic backgrounds, have opportunity to be successful here. And it is not an easy challenge that we face, but I'm really proud of the work that's being done by our staff and the commitment that we continue to demonstrate in that area.
And from a page layout perspective, having been a layout editor, it looks very nice. Very good work.
Okay, thank you, and thank this entire staff for everything in the document. The work, the important part. Okay, the next item on our agenda is public comments.
We are now at the portion of the agenda where the board welcomes public comment from the audience. The protocol of this part of the meeting is for the board to receive input for consideration and not necessarily to answer questions or provide feedback as a group at this particular time. Persons who wish to speak must first turn in a request to speak card. These cards will be accepted until the first speaker has completed speaking. When your name is called, please come to the presenter's table and speak into the microphone. Speakers should state their name, address, or relationship to the district at the beginning of their comments for the public record. Each presenter is allotted up to 3 minutes. If the tone sounds, comments should be concluded as quickly as possible. Finally, presenters who wish to leave written materials for the board can give them to me. Are there any cards to be turned in at this time?
Muy buenas noches. Nos encontramos durante la porción del orden del día donde la Junta Ejecutiva le da la bienvenida a algún comentario del público. El protocolo de esta parte de la reunión es para que la Junta Educativa reciba información para ser considerada y no necesariamente para contestar preguntas o proveer comentarios como un grupo durante este tiempo en particular. Las personas que desean hablar deben entregar una tarjeta titulada Petición para dirigirse públicamente ante la Junta Educativa. Estas peticiones se aceptarán hasta que termine el primer orador. Cuando escuche su nombre, por favor acérquese a la mesa de presentadores y hable directamente en el micrófono. Los oradores deben decir su nombre, dirección y su relación con el distrito antes de comenzar su comentario para el registro público. Cada persona tendrá 3 minutos para dirigirse a la Junta Educativa. Si escucha una señal, debe concluir su comentario lo más pronto posible. Y finalmente, aquellas personas que desean dejar algún material escrito para la Junta Educativa, por favor, déjenlo conmigo. ¿Alguien desea hacer un comentario? Gracias.
Okay, our first speaker is Ryan Ottens.
Start speaking when I'm ready?
Yes.
All right. I'm Ryan Ottens, as you guys just said, but I'm a student at South Elgin, and I would like to talk about the new grading system. It's not good at all. It shows how a student can get by and do nothing and still be passing their classes. It's like saying all of our teachers could go there for half a day and still get full pay, full everything, and still be expected to do half of their work. The new grading system doesn't count on homework, so we don't have to do that. It only really counts on testing, and that's about it. You get one bad grade, it's harder to pull your grade up than getting one bad grade and doing really good. Because you don't have that support from the homework, you don't have the support from projects and other stuff, and you just have the testing. Really, I do all my work, I work as hard as I can, and this past semester I got 2 A's and all the rest of them were B's. I could have done better than that, but because I'm not getting points for homework and stuff that I do every night as opposed to other kids who just do nothing and show up, it's should I do all the work I do when I could just show up, do nothing, and still be getting a D and pass all my classes and move on to college easily? That's how the new grading system looks to me.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Colleen.
Hi, I am Colleen Ottens. We live in South Elgin. Obviously, I'm Ryan's mother. I had a much longer speech. My husband and I thought we could share time. Just found out when we got here that we couldn't, so I will just be giving the highlights. This is about the grading system and how it is not an objective grading system because it's basically based on teacher feeling. Instead of saying you knew 90% of what I tested you on, after we learned it, discussed it, took notes on it, did a study guide, gave you a test, you performed 90%. Instead, it's based on some nebulous 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 system that only the teacher knows in their head. And so here's an example. I had several, but one is consistently exhibits variety in sentence structure on a project. Well, if you gave that to 5 different teachers, you would get 5 different answers. What does consistently mean? 5 times, 10 times, 15 times? Nobody knows except the teacher. But somehow the students are supposed to navigate their way through this, and they can't. It's ridiculous to try to figure out what's only in the mind of a teacher. Or something like impeccable word choice. Again, what does that mean? Consistent, what does that mean? And then finally, my favorite one that I wanted to tell you about was the rubric that we didn't get until after the project was graded and returned to us. That was the most unfair. Another thing I want to bring up is that in order to receive a 5 on work, a student must show, quote unquote, exceptional sophisticated mastery of skill. And I'm wondering how someone who is just learning a skill can have mastery of it. That's not a fair way to grade them on it. Are they doing what you expect them to do as they learn through it? Not, are they at some sophisticated, impossible level? One thing I wanted to say is that I have a degree in English literature from Northwestern. I received straight A's in my graduate level education classes at Judson University. And even on my best days, I don't know if I could show exceptional, sophisticated mastery of skills. That's an impossible thing to achieve, and it's so nebulous and not understandable. So, if you were to say you knew 80% or you did, all of these skills on a project, that is objective and gradable. The last thing I guess I want to say is that taking away the ABCD system is taking away the only understandable information that many, many parents get from school. They don't understand a lot of the things that come home. I've been a sub here 8 years, so I know my way around. But, it's just often the only way that families have to understand how their kids are doing at school. And I'm telling you that everyone I talk to, parents, teachers, administrators, staff, retired staff, nobody is for this new grading system. I will submit the rest in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Chris Ottens.
I'm not speaking, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Shesford.
Hi, my name is Mary Shusgreen. I live at 402 Orange Street in Elgin. Tonight I'm speaking as a representative of Northern Illinois Jobs with Justice. I'm here tonight to make sure you are aware of a new piece of legislation that has been introduced in Springfield by State Representative Linda Chapalavia, which would dissolve the Illinois State Charter Commission. There is a companion bill in the Illinois Senate. Chapalavia's bill is House Bill 3754, and the one in the Senate is 2626. 7, introduced by Senator Kimberly Lightford. I'm here to ask you to please, as individuals and as a board, support this bill. Please call your state representative and your state senator and ask them to sign on to co-sponsor these bills. Please contact the Illinois Association of School Boards, the Illinois Association of School Administrators, and ask them to support these initiatives. Next week, on January 23rd, my organization is holding a panel discussion in Batavia featuring local and national experts to talk about charter school effectiveness. I'll be handing out flyers to you, or I'll give them to Patrick, and you are all invited to attend that open forum. The reason we support this bill is that we support local control. The Illinois State Charter Commission was put in place. Its primary purpose was to overturn the decisions of local school boards when local school boards rejected a charter application. You folks remember the K-12 Inc. application of last year that went to you and 17 other school districts. It cost you time and energy and attorney's fees to reject it. Then they appealed to the Charter Commission, but a moratorium was put in place on virtual charters. That moratorium is going to expire, and we believe K-12 Inc. will be back. They're doing ads on television and radio. But beyond the virtual schools, you don't have to be against charters to want local control of these decisions. They're extremely important. I trust you much more than I trust that commission. That commission gets to take financial contributions from parties that have a vested interest in the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda.
On the consent agenda, we have minutes of the board meeting December 9, 2013, itemized bills January 13, 2014, personnel reports January 13, 2014, acceptance of the final report and recommendations of the Transformation Task Force, change order, Ontarioville Elementary, West Classroom Division, and Life Safety Remodel Number 1 final at builders, change order, Sunnyvale Elementary, Fire Alarm System Replacement Number 1 final, Renaissance Communication System, change order, Ellis Middle School, Intercom and Clock System Replacement Number 1 final, Renaissance Communication System, and change order, Kimball Middle School, Intercom and Clock System Replacement Number 1 final, Renaissance Communication System.
Hearing the consent agenda, is there any item that any board member would like removed from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda of January 13, 2014?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Sonia Ellis?
Yes.
Mrs. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Napolitano? Abstain. Ms. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Schroeder?
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes.
So approved.
Next item under discussion action, proposal to rename Sheridan Elementary School.
No discussion action. This is this came to the board at the last board meeting, and Mr. Sanders is here to provide additional information and answer any board questions.
Thank you, Dr. Torrance. As Dr. Torrance noted, during the December 9th work session, Principal Nita White and I shared with you the feedback and additional documentation in regards to a proposal to rename Sheridan Elementary School to honor Ronald White O'Neill. In the board packet, you'll note that since that time, we've received 11 additional comments. While the deadline for providing feedback was 24 hours after the October 15th town hall meeting, we wanted to make sure the board was fully aware of any additional comments that came in since that time. As reported in December, administration finds
Are there any questions?
So there was a document pertaining to the cost.
Correct. The Board of Finance Committee had asked for the cost associated with renaming the school. We do not expect that cost to exceed $5,000. At the time that I wrote the memo, the cost for signage was estimated, actually an actual bid that came in for $2,162. Since then, we found two other vendors, thanks to Mr. Sparks, that are actually lower than that, so it would not be that amount.
And it seemed lower than I had initially thought it would be. Is that partially, well, I guess, so being that it's elementary, there's no uniforms, obviously. There's spirit wear, but that's all paid for by the parent.
It was one of the issues that came up. We would estimate that cost of $5,000 to include replacing any sort of spirit wear, the things that students are handed out through school funds, but most everything else would be done through a PTO. This would be for the rugs,
All
any
spirit
of
wear
the
is done
signage,
through PTOs, though.
anything that inside the school that currently says Sheridan,
Okay.
to transfer it over would be less than $5,000.
So if kids wanted new sweatshirts or new T-shirts, they'd have to buy new stuff. They were gonna.
Beginning next week.
They-
Yeah, it's on.
Maybe that was one when they were adjusting the volume. I can hear you, but it is not as loud as it was before. But
I'm getting signals from people in the audience that can't hear you at all. So I'm sorry, some additional bids came in for
So
signage,
additional
so it would
bids
be
came in.
less than what was in the memo?
Correct. The memo that I provided to the board had a cost of $2,162 as a total for signage. We've had two additional bids that came in that are lower than that $2,162.
the vast majority of the initial comments were in support. The other 11, the additional 11 that came in after the deadline.
So of the 11 that came in, I've not done a full analysis, but I did note that two of the individuals who, the person that actually started the email chain asking for additional people to speak out, had already submitted a comment opposed. And so two of the people who commented had already submitted comments. So it really was 9 new comments. Of those, I didn't count them, but I would, it appeared to be more opposed with a couple in favor. But not nearly as many respondents as we had during the town hall meeting and the first round.
Any other questions, comments?
I was struck by the interesting history in the neighborhood, well, not just in the neighborhood, in Elgin generally. Most of the schools were originally named after streets. I thought that was kind of funny because we still have a few of those. And Highland and Channing are still named after streets. But when they did rename them, they picked, usually they picked local people that they were honoring somehow, like previous board members and things like that.
Larson and Kimball and
Right.
that were named after
This
local.
seems very appropriate in that light. Kind of like continuing that tradition, seems very reasonable.
So, yeah, one of the interesting things that did come out of this whole project was learning more about the history of the names of our schools. Of
Yeah,
course.
I like
We
that
did have a
too.
period of time where president names are significant, U.S. historical figures were used, but by and large, it was either streets or nondescript things like Otter Creek, Fox Meadow, Timber Trails, something that is just identified by a geographic location, not a
Yeah,
person.
personally, I prefer it when they name it after somebody who's local. I think that's very nice. And as kind of a very, I don't know, I should probably not use that kind of language here, not very proficient historian, let's put it that way. As a not very proficient historian, I do enjoy, that's why I go on the house walk, that's why I participate in the Historic Society events and things like that. I enjoy learning more and more about our neighborhoods and our local history. And so that, things like the planetarium and the where that came from, all of that stuff is a really beautiful part of our mosaic of our community. I think this is just going to be one more additional nice thing that we get to do. This is kind of fun for a board member. So many things we have to do that we don't like. This is great.
Tony, I have one question. Some of the commenters reference a policy that against naming the school after previous board members. Did we ever have such a policy? I know right now we have one that says that we can't name it after someone who's living. I understand that. But did we ever have a policy that they referenced?
So prior to last spring, the board amended the policy, section 4 of the whole policy manual was amended, and it allowed for the renaming of schools. Prior to that, it was the only thing that was addressed in the policy was the naming of new facilities. It gave the board, of course, the board always has the right to rename facilities, but there was no specific procedure to follow if somebody wanted to rename a facility. So what the policy change did was it allowed the consideration of renaming facilities and really delineated the process to follow.
So we didn't have a policy that we couldn't rename a facility after a previous board member
No.
or teacher.
No, just it did not spell out the process that
Right.
would be required. Prior to that, there had been proposals to rename portions of buildings after individuals. For example, the Chesbrough Field at Elgin High School, the Chester Alexander Library, those types of things. But for a full-fledged renaming of a building, it did not prohibit it, but it also did not spell out a process to follow.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
So they were just in error then?
But I think there have been past practices among prior boards that historically they've not.
But it wasn't
renamed
written down
facilities,
anywhere.
But it was not specifically in the policy.
Okay.
The policy allowed for the naming of facilities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Could I have a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the renaming of Sheridan Elementary School to honor Ronald D. O'Neill?
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Napolitano? Ms. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Schroeder?
Yes.
Excuse me. Ms. Sonia Ellis?
Abstain.
Madam President?
Yes.
Are you there for votes?
Okay, the next item on the agenda is other business. I don't know that any of us have any big updates because it was great.
Although I have to say, they plowed and did everything around the schools that I saw very well.
Yeah, I did want to say, I know the effort that it took our operations department to get through those, that weather emergency. But I also want to say that, you know, we've had some crises and some tragedy recently that our staff has really been, I think, impacted by, and I think it's important to remember that, you know, the lives and well-being of our students is so important to our staff, and that we remember that when those things happen, the impact that it has on our staff. It's incredibly difficult. We have had some really, really rough things going on.
Any other?
Oh, and thank you for transportation for sitting up all night and
So, yeah,
keeping
let me,
the buses running.
if I may, I had a couple of updates. One is, as you know, last week was our first week back, and Monday was a scheduled Institute Day, and it was, we knew that students weren't coming, and it was an important Institute Day, and it was sort of late in the afternoon when we finally made the decision to close actually the entire district, and as far as I know, it might be the first time that the whole district was actually closed. We just thought it was I thought it was just too dangerous, since everyone was saying stay out of the streets. At 6 p.m. on Tuesday evening, we were supposed to open on Wednesday. At 6 p.m. on Tuesday evening, we had 60% of our buses were starting. So it looked like we might be closing on Wednesday. Right? And by 7:30, 75% were operating, and I told Jeff King that if we did not have 90%, I just been in schools. And there were 5 individuals who stayed up all night until 3 in the morning when the mechanics come in at transportation, starting buses, keeping them warm and so forth. And so we do their effort in plan operations, hearing. As you know, when we open schools, we need to make sure that the exits are clear too. It's not just the front entrance, it's the everything around it. And so they did an incredible job. We did have some heating issues at several facilities, and they were working very, very, very hard at that. I did want to share, so that was an incredible effort. We would have had one more day, Caesar, but as you know, I don't like to close schools anyways, and so the 2 days hurt me enough.
I'd like to spread the snow days out now, actually, a little bit.
Yeah,
I usually get lobbied by students through my Twitter account, and I didn't get much lobbying.
You know, real quick on the weather issue, I just had a question on, what we do, I guess, with the municipalities regarding, snow removal near the bus stops. I noticed, at least in my area, a lot of snow had piled up right where the bus stops were. Nobody had removed it from the sidewalk, which the homeowner should have. In this case, it was a foreclosed house that nobody did. So the kids had to stay in the street. The street was a sheet of ice. And, many parents sat, but not every parent sat with their kid Wednesday. So I didn't know, obviously it's the homeowner's responsibility, but it's the village's responsibility to make sure the street is clear. But, what do we do as a communication?
We do a lot of communication with all of our villages. There's not a lot of leverage necessarily, and so part of the process to identify whether a school, whether we close, is looking at projections. Andy and his team go out to our 90 square miles because it may look okay on one area but not in another. So we make that decision, and then we try to make the decision before. I'm talking with them usually around 4 in the morning if there's a recommendation to close or if there's a sort of gray area. And then at that time, we try to make a decision before 5 so that we can begin to communicate with our staff and parents.
So, but if if the bus driver notices that happening, can they notify through chain of command the village ultimately?
Jeff, I don't see you over there. How do we?
He's hiding.
So typically, most of our villages do a great job. They keep clear in front of the school buildings.
Sure.
But it's impossible for them to do all of our bus stops because we have over 1,000 bus stops.
And those are the last streets to get plowed.
Right,
Residential.
because they're all secondary, right. So a lot of them, especially going into Tuesday, were not done. I know where I live, my street hadn't been done that I live on. But most of them are very good about getting the streets around the school buildings cleared. And then if we see issues near there or places where we have some of the bigger bus stops because the high schools are consolidated at the elementaries, our guys will go out with equipment and clear the areas if we can't get somebody else to do it. So, but usually there's pretty good cooperation between the villages and our villages.
Another update is I just wanted to just pass this around to the board members. This is the Elgin Area Chamber of Commerce 2014 Community Guide, and there's some tabbed areas where U-46 has a presence. And then the final thing, I received a personal communication from a student at Wellesley College, and so I want to share that a little bit with you. Dear Dr. Torres, this is December 19th, and some personal things, and she said, I definitely missed the board meetings this semester. This is from Diana Castillo, where Caesar sits now. However, I know for a fact that this role is what helped me get into Wellesley. My experience so far this semester reinforced how fortunately I was to have had this role and how grateful I am to you and the district for including me, my position at the board meetings. Wellesley has been pretty fantastic so far. I can't even put into words how beautiful the campus is, the professors, and so forth. I've made friends from all over the world and nation, and as well as learning the ropes of Boston. I'm involved in House Council, Dorm Student Council, Mezcla, Latina Group, Fusion, Multiracial Group, and a program called Mission Hill that tutors kids living in public housing units in the city. It's so rewarding, and I've gotten to know Harvard students through the program as well. I've also learned that Wellesley and other similar East Coast schools could really help students from districts like U-46. It should be stressed that schools like Wellesley are possible and worth looking into. I find that many students are locked into staying in the Midwest. I believe East and West schools should at least be mentioned to those who aren't knowledgeable of the subject. Always, I hope you are doing well at best. So this is from Diana Castillo, and I don't know if you have college students, you want to be getting these kind of cards, but this is one of my college students, so I thought I'd share it with you.
I actually talked to Deanna over break. Did she tell you that?
Yeah.
We had a really lengthy conversation about, she feels really strongly, and I don't know, Caesar, maybe you can chime in on this, but she feels really strongly that there's value in our U-46 students who are out at college. A lot of them are home on extended breaks, and they don't usually go back to school till the middle of January, sometimes the end of January, and then they're home again before school gets out. I think there's a lot of value in having some of those students who are willing to come back and talk to our juniors and seniors who are looking at colleges, because they're living it. And I do think that she's correct in that it means more when it comes from a peer. It means more when it comes from another student to hear, did they feel prepared? You know, any ideas and advice they have for that application process. I hope that there would be a way that we could think about developing some kind of system that we get our U-46 college students back into the high schools when they're home on breaks to talk to our kids, because I think it's really powerful, and I think they have a lot to teach themselves.
That is a really excellent idea, since most parents know that their own kids are not listening to them. They are listening to their peers, and if we could get peers like Deanna Castillo to come and talk, if she could talk to my daughter, I would be so thrilled. That would be really, really awesome thing. And I think if we could, and I'm sure a lot of other parents would think might motivate those kids to want to get into college, things like that.
But so we're capturing some things, some alumni, but I think this is a great idea. Anytime I talk to an alumni, I ask them, how did we prepare you? I had some information from some alumni about that kind of stuff. But Caesar, Ms. Kerber asked you a question.
Do you have any, do you feel like that would be meaningful?
Actually, the other day we had some Oregon alumni arrive, and they stayed through most of the lunch period, so I got to see Dion as well. It was nice. It was nice. I honestly think that it's helpful, because I saw a lot of juniors go to that we had said in the auditorium, and honestly, it's one of those things where you kind of want a little bit of help, because you don't know what you're doing until you're actually doing it. I know I had some troubles with the Common App. That wasn't exactly the best time of my life, but I got through it. And it's always nice to hear that someone did the same things, went through the same difficulties, and know that there is a possibility to find what you're looking for. So I think there's definitely some potential there.
Thank you. That's good to have that reinforcement.
Okay, anything else? All right, the next item, Mr. Lacy. Okay, other business, student disciplinary matters.
Yes, administration is recommending that student G be expelled for the remainder of this school year, 2013-2014, and for the first semester of the 2014-2015 school year.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve administration's recommendation to expel student G for the remainder of the 2013-14 school year and the first semester of 2014-15 school year?
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Napolitano?
Yes.
Ms. Nolan?
No.
Mrs. Schroeder?
Yes.
Mrs. Sonia-Ellis?
Yes.
Mrs. Kerber?
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes,
It's over.
thank you. Other business, November financials.
Mr. Burnage, Director of Financial Operations, is here to review the attached, the financial report for November and to answer any board questions.
Thank you. November financial report, our total fund balances as of November 30th are $208,757,196, and that's a $21 million decrease from our October 31st balance. During the month, we received $3.9 million in property tax payments. In November, we only received $438,000 from the state for categoricals.
Yeah, can you speak into the microphone?
The amount due from the state at the end of the month was $7.4 million. For federal funds, we received $1.7 million. Our total revenue is 8.9% higher than the previous year, and our expenditures are 3.4% higher, but in line with our budget. If there's any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Are there any questions?
You mentioned how much the state owes currently. How far behind are they? What does it represent?
At the next meeting, I'll have the December report,
Okay.
but I can tell you that in December, we did get $5.2 million, but that's also the end of the quarter, so they vouchered another group of invoices. So as of today, they actually owe us $8.7 million, which is about 1.3 higher than where we were November 30th.
Okay, 'cause this is the November report.
This is
The December
November,
report
since
will
we
reflect
didn't have
that.
the second
Okay.
December. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Our final work session item is security updates. Mr. Burnage, Mr. King, Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Javits, Director of Plan Operations, will present the order and answer any board questions.
This change order is the final number one for the security updates at 14 schools, 2 middle schools and 12 elementaries. The administration recommend approval of the change order in the amount of -$768.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. That being the last item on the agenda, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.